Thanks, Alex. I'm here outside Trinity Irish Pub, where the UVA College Republicans held a watch party for tonight's second presidential debate. It was a rowdy atmosphere, with laughter erupting at Trump's many jabs at Secretary Clinton. On 4 Fridays this summer, popular food truck options like these, the UVA students flock to on a daily basis, will be found outside UVA's art grounds prior to evening shows, as a part of the drama department's Food Truck Fridays event. It was quite impressive, Kara. We were in for a real treat this past weekend. We got to see some vintage Virginia basketball. That defensive effort was outstanding. They gave up only 47 points in the entire game, which is the fewest that they've given up all year. The idea behind the ACC network is that Wahoo fans can watch virtually any game, whether they can actually make it out to the ballpark or not. Students across all parties agreed that Donald Trump strayed off topic and dodged tough questions. But Republicans felt that he handled the pressure of the evening well. In order to increase capability, 3 brand new control rooms, like this one, were built in the basement of John Paul Jones Arena as part of a $6.2 million renovation to the existing television infrastructure. And as part of the deal, the UVA Athletic Department paid for it all up front.
NBC 10 News starts now.
Good morning, I'm Pete DeLuca. Opening statements are scheduled to begin in the trial of Pennsylvania Attorney General Kathleen Kane. The jury was seated yesterday and is made up of 6 women and 6 men. NBC 10 was there as Kane arrived at the courthouse in Norristown, Montgomery County. She's accused of leaking secret grand jury information and lying about it under oath. Kane's trial is expected to last about a week. This year, Virginia's 90,000 teachers will be receiving a 2% pay raise from the state. But they feel slighted by the General Assembly because all other state employees will receive a 3% salary increase. Carmen Sitton, who has taught 2nd grade for 7 years at Madison Heights Elementary School, makes $41,000 a year. That's $7,200 less than the national average. I asked her if that 2% raise, roughly $800, is enough.
Not really. 2% of practically a really, really low paycheck. It's really not a lot.
Sitton took nearly a 50% pay cut when she left her job in banking to become a teacher. Her career change is quite the opposite of the many Virginia teachers leaving the profession at an alarming rate. Do you think having such low salaries turns away a lot of people who would otherwise consider becoming teachers?
Absolutely. 800 teaching vacancies in the state of Virginia. 800.
Jim Livingston, the president of the Virginia Education Association, agrees with Sitton and warns about potential long-term negative effects.
We are not competitive. We are not attracting, and we're not retaining the very best that we can with regard to teaching personnel to put in our classrooms.
Teaching in rural counties in the state can be a hardship, and part of the problem is the way teachers are paid, from a mixture of state and local money. To the General Assembly, that 2% is generous and was designed to be matched or exceeded by the various localities. I spoke to Emmett Hanger, co-chairman of the Senate Finance Committee, who says that the state's 2% increase was intended to put pressure on counties to raise teacher salaries themselves.
They don't automatically get the funding unless they increase teacher salaries. They could have already during this budget cycle granted a salary increase. If they certify to us that they have, they're eligible.
The 2% raise for teachers will go into effect a year from now, and teachers are already gearing up for a battle again next year. They point out that at this rate, it will take Virginia 6 more budget cycles until teachers' salaries reach the national average. For WVA News, I'm Pete DeLuca. When the Atlantic Coast Conference and ESPN partnered to form the ACC network last July, UVA was immediately required to broadcast at least 40 games online this year. And that number only increases each year until the cable channel debuts in 2019, when ACC schools will have to telecast 12 games on cable, on top of their existing online obligations.
It's a lot of controlled chaos is how I like to describe it.
Mike Slamowitz, a senior producer and operations manager for WhoVision, UVA's athletic video services team, says that the extra ESPN broadcasts, on top of what WhoVision already does, is stretching the capabilities of their staff.
If we have a baseball game that we're doing an ACC network show for, and a lacrosse game, which happens pretty much every weekend in the spring, we've got 3 shows right off the bat that we're doing there: baseball Who Vision, baseball ACC network, and then lacrosse Who Vision. And in some situations, also lacrosse ACC network. So what you have going on is a lot of activity. You have all 3 control rooms lit up at the same time.
In order to increase capability, 3 brand new control rooms, like this one, were built in the basement of John Paul Jones Arena as part of a $6.2 million renovation to the existing television infrastructure. And as part of the deal, the UVA Athletic Department paid for it all up front. Todd Goodale, Senior Associate Athletics Director for External Affairs at UVA, tells me that the Athletic Department will recoup that money and more over time from ESPN.
All of the 15 schools will share in the revenue from the ACC network, and we're going to use that revenue to pay off the investments that we've made to put us in position to produce the events up to ESPN's standard specifications. A large chunk of that funding was also used to build a studio on the concourse of John Paul Jones Arena that will be used for a virtual set when the cable channel launches in 2 years. This virtual set takes a 3-dimensional green screen and turns into a full working set through a graphics program housed 2 floors below.
The hope is that by the time the network rolls around in 2019, this will be a great spot that we can use to provide studio content for the actual ACC network when it goes on the air.
The idea behind the ACC network is that Wahoo fans can watch virtually any game, whether they can actually make it out to the ballpark or not.
We think it's significant for our fans to be able to follow our teams and follow our programs closely through a platform that's readily available and accessible to them.
We do a number of events that ESPN doesn't request us to do. Even though we're only obligated to do 48 events next year, we'll end up doing over 100.
Producing all of these games for ESPN is great for the exposure of UVA's teams. Even the average online webcast draws hundreds of viewers. But all that video puts a lot of pressure on Who Vision's employees. What has been the biggest challenge for your crew throughout this partnership with ESPN?
There's been 2 big challenges. Number 1 is simply number of events and manpower. We found that it's been tough to try and figure out the jigsaw puzzle of how to crew all these events. The second thing is the ESPN and ACC Network folks have been very upfront and said, you're not doing a home team broadcast. Your job is to tell the story of the game and to give equal coverage to both teams. And I think that's something that we've really tried to internalize and has been a little bit of a challenge.
In order to solve the increased workload, Who Vision plans to increase its workforce.
There are numerous positions on the crew that need to be filled, from camera people to graphics operators, replay operators, production assistants, play-by-play and color talent that really has stretched our existing pool of freelance employees who do that for Who Vision now. So we're hoping that in the next couple of years we can really develop a relationship with the university and the students to help us fill those kind of freelance style positions with UVA students.
The ACC network has been modeled after ESPN's successful SEC network, which was founded in 2014 and brings in over $100 million in revenue each year. If the ACC cable network is even half as successful as its SEC counterpart, UVA will stand to bring in over $3 million annually from this partnership. In Charlottesville, I'm Pete DeLuca, WUVA News. Top prosecutor on trial. Today, lawyers give opening statements in the case against Pennsylvania Attorney General Kathleen Kane. Deadly collision. New information about a Kensington crash that killed a 3-year-old girl. Running for cover. New video surfaces of a shooting on a crowded Philadelphia corner.
NBC 10 News starts now.
Good morning, I'm Pete DeLuca. Opening statements are scheduled to begin in the trial of Pennsylvania Attorney General Kathleen Kane. The jury was seated yesterday and is made up of 6 women and 6 men. NBC 10 was there as Kane arrived at the courthouse in Norristown, Montgomery County. She's accused of leaking secret grand jury information and lying about it under oath. Kane's trial is expected to last about a week. We have new details this morning on a car crash in North Philadelphia that killed a 3-year-old girl. Police are investigating if street racing caused the accident at 2nd and York Streets last night. That's where a car struck this silver Honda with the family inside. The girl's mother, who was driving, was not hurt. The girl's grandmother had minor injuries. Police are questioning the driver of the other car. When the track and field events get underway, a Northampton County man will be among those competing. Joe Kovacs is the reigning world champion in the shot put. The pride of Nazareth learned his craft as a high schooler in the parking lot of Bethlehem Catholic. Even more remarkable, his mother Joanna was his coach. The two have an inseparable bond.
She was huge for me because she did two roles. My father passed away when I was young, and I was 7 years old, and actually my grandmother passed away the day after. So it was a 1-2 punch for my family, and it just grew my mom and I closer together.
Joanna takes us back to where it all began at Bethlehem Catholic and sits down exclusively with our Randy Gyllenhaal, Saturday at 7 p.m. We are tracking all of our local athletes during the summer games with our Olympic Zone specials. You can watch the next show tonight at 7:30 and every night this week except Sunday. And NBC 10's Jacqueline London is with our local athletes in Rio. Her live reports continue this afternoon and tonight on NBC 10 News. You can always get the latest breaking news and weather with the NBC 10 app. I'm Pete DeLuca. Thanks for watching and have a great night.